Okay, y'all, real talk here. Halo was the final nail on the coffin. And now that Halo is coming to PlayStation, is Xbox going extinct? Hello, everybody. GamingOtakuGeek here, and I wanted to give my thoughts on this subject because honestly, Halo coming to PlayStation is like CM Punk returning to WWE after Survivor Series 2023 came to a close. Hell froze over. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would live to see the day in which Halo, Xbox's prized IP, would make its way to PlayStation. I feel it signals a massive paradigm shift in the gaming landscape. And honestly, this just seems to me like Microsoft will eventually bow out of the console manufacturing business. I remember a time back in the day when the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube were battling for supremacy in the console wars. Microsoft's Xbox was basically a statement and a declaration of competition to Sony's PlayStation 2 at the time. The GameCube honestly was just off on the side because Nintendo didn't really particularly care about partaking in these console wars. They always just focused on doing their own thing. In essence, from that generation onward up till now, Sony and Microsoft had always been butting heads and competing to see who would get the majority of sales, for the respective consoles as the generations went by. I've always been more of a Sony and Nintendo guy, so I never really owned an Xbox, though I do remember playing my brother's OG Xbox back in the day. I remember having played the Star Wars, the Clone Wars game that had come out at the time, around the release of Attack of the Clones, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe I also remember playing the Xbox version of The Hobbit. I just always figured that this would be a rivalry that would last until the end of time, but now, with all of Microsoft's properties basically being available on PlayStation now, it's kind of a jarring feeling because it's more so of like, well, I guess Xbox is kind of like, surrendering at this point. And no, I do not mean to say this in the way to trigger Xbox fans or any such thing or to just gas up PlayStation fans. This is more so of a curious observation from someone looking from the outside in, as someone that never really purchased any Microsoft consoles. It's just curious to me that after all this time, we really are seeing the end of an era. But I suppose that we should have seen the signs coming, because I remember that Splinter Cell was exclusively an Xbox property. But then somewhere down the line, I think it might have been after Double Agent, or, I think it was around the time of Double Agent releasing that the franchise started to come out on PlayStation as well, if I'm not mistaken. And then I remember that another massively successful series that had been predominantly on Xbox, Mass Effect, made its way to the PS3. But it wasn't until the PS4 that I actually got to play them because that's when the Legendary Edition launched. Fantastic trilogy, no notes here. But yeah, that was another big IP that made its way over to Sony platforms. But then when I heard that Gears of War was making its way to PlayStation, I'm like, okay, something is happening here. I think Xbox is really losing all of their exclusives. It's like, it is impressive the amount of IPs that are now migrating over to Sony consoles as well. It's like, wow, Gears of War, I did not see that coming. And then I believe Forza Motorsport, which is always the competitor to Gran Turismo, the opposing franchise on Xbox, that I believe is also making its way to PlayStation. So it's like, damn, that's crazy. And now with Halo, arguably Microsoft's biggest gaming IP, migrating over to PlayStation consoles, I feel like this is the death knell for Xbox, as it exists as a gaming console. Because now it's like they really have nothing left. Because sure, there will always be Xbox loyalists that will get their games on Xbox. But now with the option for PlayStation, a lot of people are probably going to migrate over to PlayStation. And so this just leaves room for discussion in terms of where does Microsoft go from here. In my eyes, I feel that in the not so distant future, Microsoft is just going to end up being like Sega, and it is going to go the way of said company in terms of it is no longer going to manufacture consoles, but rather it is just going to be a publisher or a developer of games. Because Sega, after the flop of the Dreamcast, that's basically the route they went, and that's how they've been ever since. So I don't think it's too out of the realm of possibility to think that Microsoft is going to head the same way, because now it's like, what else really is there? And I know that Microsoft recently hiked the prices of their current generation of Xbox consoles, so that does not help for the fan base, and that just really doesn't help for their sales because it's only going to make it harder for people to access these Xbox systems. And I believe they did their version of the PlayStation Portal, because I believe I saw that floating around somewhere, where now they have like a mobile option to play like Game Pass games and whatnot. But even then, I feel like that's not going to be enough to keep Xbox loyalists, there. And then when it comes to the next generation, I have heard rumors, and I've just like been watching from like different YouTubers and just like hearing murmurs that the next generation of Xbox is going to be so expensive, it's like basically almost like building a PC, at which point you are just better off investing in building a PC. So it just lends more credence to the fact that, well, I don't think that Microsoft in terms of the gaming landscape is long for this world, which now leaves basically Sony and Nintendo as the kings of the home console market. Nintendo's going to be around forever because they have been here since before PlayStation and Xbox even existed, and they will be here long after those two cease to exist. As for PlayStation itself, I see it lasting for quite a while. Like, unless, Sony starts making absolutely horrid decisions that really, alienate players from wanting to get Sony's latest systems, I feel like PlayStation is always going to be a brand that stands the test of time, as it has proven to since its inception. It is crazy, though, to think that we live in a time where the paradigm for gaming has changed so much that now the traditional quote-unquote console wars, as we call them, basically don't exist anymore. Now it's just a matter of, okay, which companies are going to die out and which companies are going to prevail. But at the same time, now gaming is more accessible to people than ever before because now companies, publishers, developers, they are doing their damnedest to make sure that their games are available on as many platforms as humanly possible. The only ones that I feel will retain sole exclusivity of their properties is Nintendo, because I don't think they're ever going to budge on that. When it comes to Sony, though, Sony, I feel like they'll be more lenient on having some of their exclusives appear on other platforms, but I feel that also Sony will hold fast to their exclusive IP for quite some time. But yeah, we are living in a constantly evolving and changing gaming world, and the fact that we have come to this point is absolutely insane. But yeah, Halo, the last bastion of Microsoft, is no more because now Sony gets to, play in this playground. So yeah, very interesting stuff indeed. And sure, there's Game Pass, but will that be enough? Will that be enough to keep the Xbox consumer base happy? That remains to be seen. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the subject. I just wanted to make this video and discuss this topic real quick. So tell me what you think in the comments below, because I know that people out there my age that grew up on the PS2 era, the Xbox era, the GameCube era, I want to know from you, especially since I'm someone that never really owned an Xbox console. I want to know from all of you what your experiences were with these, ranging from the OG to the Series S, Series X. I want to know what your perspective is on this matter and what it means for you as an Xbox fan. I would very much like to hear your thoughts. But anyways, until next time, this has been Gaming Otaku Geek, signing out.